Well, hello, folks. Welcome to another Peak Careers interview. Today, this is a follow-up to a blog I wrote earlier about sending your message on LinkedIn. And so we're going to talk today about how to write your LinkedIn About section. And I'm ecstatic to have these three people who I consider good friends of mine. Even though Hannah and I don't believe I've ever met face-to-face, I can say Bob and I have once, and Sabrina and I have a few times, but all great, respected people in their field. Bob works at the Mass Lowell Career Center. Hannah's founder of Career Sherpa, and Sabrina's a holistic coach and a LinkedIn trainer. And so today I'm going to ask these experts, what is your approach to helping clients develop their About section, and also a couple of tips on how to engage others and really in sending your message on LinkedIn, because there's lots of ways to do that. So I will let you folks read, my listeners here and my people who are watching. You can read this the entire bio on each of these folks. But Bob's been he does a number of webinars at the Mass Lowell Career Center. And he also is a prolific blogger with things career related. And if you're not following him, you should be. Speaking of, if you're not following him, you should be. You should also be following Hannah if you want to know what's going on in this career strategy world. She does a great job. She's this year's one of LinkedIn's top voices in job search and careers. And she can be found at careersherpa.net and on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Sabrina is a holistic career coach, life coach, and a LinkedIn trainer. Does great jobs, and her focus is a lot of her focus is on mindfulness, and she and I share a lot of interest in that particular topic. So, anyways, welcome to my cast of characters. Thank you so much for taking some time today. I want to start with we'll start with Hannah, and we want to talk about what is your approach to helping clients develop their About section, because that's such an important section.
It is. I think people struggle with it for a variety of reasons. Number one is writing, and a lot of people don't really like writing about themselves and in talking about themselves. So I think, so where I usually start with people, if they've got a resume, that's even better, and we can sort of work from that. But what I like to give them before we even get started with crafting or drafting their About section is to show them sort of different samples that I've been collecting over the years of different About sections, because what we know is that they're different styles of writing your About section. Some are storytelling, some are very bare bones, some are very bio-like. So what I try and do is give them sort of a selection that I've been collecting, because it's hard to find them. If I sent them out on their own saying, go find some good About sections that you want to model, it's really hard to find those. So I sort of have done a lot of that legwork, and I share with them, which one of these formats feels more like your style? Which one can you see using for yourself? Or are there certain parts of this, this person's that you like, and then you like the way that this person has worded this? So I like to give them something to start with, so they're not like looking at a blank piece of paper. And so that is usually how I start the creative process, because I find it has worked well for me and for the clients that I've worked with. And then once we have, it's a draft. It's always a draft. This is not a final draft. It's an initial draft. And if people don't feel like it's a final draft, they're usually a little bit more comfortable in just putting stuff to paper. So we work from Word, and, we go back and forth, and I say, just send me your draft. Send me your draft. And I have them go back and refine it. And I usually ask them some questions about, what do you think is missing? What else would someone need to know about you? And usually what I find people are lacking when they're writing their own profile is sort of a summary of the industries that they played in. Sometimes it's that scope of industry or breadth of industry that really is unique to them, and I want that to come across. So industry is one area. Purpose and passion are two other areas. How did you fall into this career? Or what is it that, why are you inspired to be in this area? So I'd like people to sometimes depending on the person and their style, but I usually try and get them to get something around that as well, to make sure that those are things that they cover those things, because those are things that wouldn't come out in the resume. They wouldn't come out in the cover letter. They would only come out in sort of like the second or third interview. And I want people to know about the purpose and passion first. And then, those are the areas that I usually have to coach them on more to get that information and find a way to incorporate that. Sometimes, we'll lead with a quote or a testimonial. It really depends on their style, but we go back and forth, and I really want to make sure that they're asking, answering some of those other questions that are a little less known and usually not so well addressed in the summary section, about section.
Yeah, which they take, a lot of these folks take that for granted, that everybody can do this, or, and I always say, there's no one in the world like you. Every human being is unique. You bring something different to the table than anybody else. And, and they don't always realize that, but that's where they really do need some more help.
Yeah. And I can't emphasize enough how important it is, because people are perfectionists. Like, there are a lot of people who are perfectionists, and they don't want to publish anything on LinkedIn until it's perfect. So the final part of this process is, whenever we get to what we think is a more closer to a final draft, is, okay, this is what I want you to do. Just post it up there. Put your about section up there.
Yeah.
If you want to share and ask for people to give you feedback privately, through an email. Hey, could you check out my about section? Let me know what you think about it. Get that kind of feedback. But it's sort of a test run. And if you're getting feedback, you can always go back and change it. It's not written in stone. Yeah. So I always say, let's do a soft launch. Let's put it out there and see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I mean, it's a draft. It's always a draft. It's never more. I mean, you're going to always be updating it and tweaking it, and it's okay,
I like to use the phrase, it's a dynamic document, not a static. So it's going to change. In fact, you should revisit it, even once it's up there. Revisit it every 3 to 6 months, because you might change, and so it needs to change as you do. Yeah.
Actually, I'm gonna ask this next question to Bob, who fell off the Zoom wagon there, but I wanted to follow up on that, because I think this is an important piece. I actually make an appointment in my calendar with myself the third Thursday of every month to relook at my LinkedIn profile, because there's times where I go, you just get busy and you don't realize, oh, that's right, that is something new that I should actually add to my profile, and it's not there. I'm like assuming in my head somehow miraculously made it. And so there's a lot of months I don't do anything, but I take that one time, and if I want to make a change, I usually just stick it in my calendar on that third Thursday, and then I'll make that change at that point. But so it is dynamic, and it should be changing. Well, listen, welcome back, Bob. Thanks for...
Well, this is an example of what a lot of people are going through today, job seekers, professionals, where all of a sudden your internet just like craps out on you. So I apologize. Did you miss me?
I want an apology from your internet provider is what I want.
Yeah, right. Oh, it's Comcast.
Okay. So Bob, what's your approach to helping clients develop their about section?
Well, I was really going to use a lot of what Hannah said, but so I have this approach. And first of all, I tell my clients that it's their story. And I know people have said this, and what exactly does that mean? So what it means to me is that you start with a strong paragraph that really grabs the reader's attention, and you really have to have those strong statements within the first 3 lines to really grab the reader's attention, and to really introduce yourself and tell people what you're all about. So it may be that you are, maybe you want to talk about your expertise in your industry or your occupation. Maybe you want your passion. Did she already say it? Okay, I'm sorry. So maybe.
Oh man, your
internet fading in out.
Your internet is wonky.
And now we've got him cut.
At least his eyes are open.
This is what we're dealing with in this world, and we just have to roll with it. So it's kind of like part of acceptance and and thinking on our feet and going with the flow when these things happen.
So I love where Bob's going with this, because he's really being like, mine's more drafty, what I was saying, and what Bob is saying, okay, sort of after you've done this draft, with a second critical eye, go back and make sure that that first paragraph is really impactful, and make sure that the words that you're using are really accurate and describe you. So I really loved where he was going.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, we've lost them for the time being. So let's just, it's a new world, right? So let's go to Sabrina. Oh wait, whoa, here he comes. He's gonna try one more time. Right.
Bob, one thing you could do is go without video. Sometimes we can have our audio come through internet-wise. Oh, we lost him again. Okay.
Hold on, here he is. I'm gonna admit him one more time.
I don't know. Should we let him back in? No, I'm kidding.
All right, buddy.
All right, we got you back.
He can't hear. Here we go. Come on, Bob. There you go.
Okay, so this is past humorous. Should I start over?
There's no
we were
editing.
talking about
There's no editing?
passion, your passions
Okay.
and your purpose.
Yeah,
Do
Exactly.
the second pass and say, all right, where's it at? What do I have here? And then look to see what's missing. That's what you're, I think, saying.
Yeah. So I really think that, you should have a couple of paragraphs, no more than 2, where you are talking about, your expertise or your passion, the why, and then the who you do it for maybe. And then what I like to suggest is that the headline, which has really, gained popularity, as I think it's always been popular, the headline would give you some good structure in order to, write your about section. So let's say you have some, areas of expertise or some titles that you have in your headline. Well, then in your about section, you can use those areas of expertise and maybe for 3 lines or so, describe why you're strong in those. And I like to suggest that they call on their accomplishments. What have they accomplished under, something like project management, problem solving, presentation, in my case, LinkedIn training, what else? Blogging, yes.
And here's the other
I do
thing that's
mention
really
blogging.
remote work. Like if you've done remote work before, it would be, and you're good at that and you want to do more of that, definitely call out your achievements within remote work, because that's huge right now.
Keep it current.
Perfect. Yep. Yeah. I mean, your about section is about you, and it is about not your past per se, but really what you're going to bring to an employer or to a business partner or whomever. Your about section is about the future. And so you need to get this across, and it really adds to your branding. So branding being that, what are you going to bring to employers and society in general? And you need to be consistent in that. And so you need to be consistent throughout the rest of your profile. So, that's how I see the about section. Also have good concluding paragraph. So, yeah.
It's about value, right?
It's about value, absolutely.
Like you said, I mean, that's so important to remember, is that it's not a list of what you did.
Exactly.
It's really about what value you bring to the workplace. Because if you talk about value, employers are going to assume that you're going to continue that value if they hire you. And so it's not just that you sorted paper and answered phones. It's the value. What's the value that you brought to that workplace? That's what employers want to know. So
Totally.
I think that's, that's a great way of sort of giving context to that.
Can I ask a question for you, Bob, and maybe Sabrina too?
Sure.
So Bob, how often do you encourage people, your job seekers, to put their email address in their about section nowadays?
Oh, yes. The call to action. How could I forget that? I mean, not everyone is astute enough to go to contact info and find your email address there, recruiters included. So you should have it in your about section. I mean, do you agree, or were you leading me to the what I forgot? Okay, thank you. No, totally, totally. I mean, it could be, one of the most important things you write in your about section is your contact information.
How do you get a hold of you? I remember
Exactly.
one time there was somebody it was a career person that I wanted to get a hold of. And it was like, I went to their LinkedIn contact page and all it said was their LinkedIn profile page, which I was already on, right? I mean, if they don't go in and fill it out, there's nothing there. I literally wanted to talk to this person about business and could not get a hold of that person, period. Couldn't.
They're lost.
And so always do that. Yep. Listen, I want to go to Sabrina here, who's got a new twist on how to do this about section that I think is going to be very interesting. So Sabrina, go ahead.
Well, this really picks up from a statement Bob made. He said that your LinkedIn, and we talked about value, but your LinkedIn is setting you up for the future. So it's like what you have in there needs to be those things that you want to do more of in the future. So I've started integrating more of my mindfulness practices in my technology training. It's kind of a funny world that I'm holistic and I'm a LinkedIn trainer. But I would like to invite you, our listeners, to grab a piece of paper and a pen and participate. It's going to take like 3 minutes in what I do now when I'm teaching the LinkedIn webinars to help people really get back in touch with what is it they care about, that they enjoy doing, and they want to do more of. So that's your invitation. Grab a piece of paper, grab a pen. These guys are going to play too. I'm going to steal the screen for a minute. And like I said, this is really just short reflection exercise. The story is that we're so busy and we've got so many challenging inputs right now with the news, and our world is very complicated and challenging. We don't stop to reflect very often. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to hope that you as listeners, as career coaches, and anyone else who comes across this really takes this seriously and joins us. So this is a short reflection exercise. Grab that pen and paper, and we're going to take a pause and ask you, even if you're in a job that you plan to stay in, I want you to do this exercise because I want you to think about what you really care about. So where do you want your path to take you? The phrase I'm going to give you is, I want you to think about your best possible future self. Best possible future self. What we're going to do first is let go of that thought. Hard to do, but we're going to take a couple of long, deep breaths with a 4-count inhale, a 4-count hold, and a 4-count exhale. Just that, nothing more. Best way to do it is put both feet firmly on the ground. Feel your feet for a second. Notice where they are. Notice where your legs and your lower back are hitting a chair or a couch or wherever you are. And then take a notice of your posture. Move my hair and say, instead of, I do this sometimes, but I want us to have like some upright posture that's comfortable to allow for some really deep breaths. All right, so once you have that posture, I'm closing my eyes. You're welcome to do that. And I will go ahead and say, okay, deep inhale. And hold 4, 3, 2, 1. Slow exhale. Another deep breath in. Hold 4, 3, 2, 1, and exhale. Last deep breath in. Hold 4, 3, 2, 1, exhale. Take a couple more breaths at any pace you wish. See if you can follow the inhale, feel it in your nose or mouth, and follow the exhale. Any pace, just notice for a moment the simplicity of our breath. And then you can gently open your eyes and imagine yourself at some point in the future. Maybe this is sometime in 2021. Imagine that things got into such an alignment that you were living your best possible future self in terms of your job and your career. In your mind's eye, what might be some elements that you experience or you feel in that job? What things could you be doing? Even if you're in the same work, what elements bring you to life the most? It's a brainstorm. When things pop in, write them down. Could be a particular thing that lights you up right now in your work or used to light you up and you haven't been able to do it recently. Think in terms of tasks, environments. Let me be quiet for a minute. Take about 30 seconds and jot down anything that comes to mind. If you got to sculpt and be your best possible future self, what would you look like? Without limitations for this exercise. Boundless, best possible future self. And take 10 more seconds to jot down anything that comes to mind. If you want, you could share a word that comes to mind in your best possible future self. And I'll just say, when I think about this one, it has to do with pace, that I'm living in a pace that's really more manageable, that I don't put so much on top of myself. So that's a very introverted and more about how I want to be and values driven kind of response. But I really want to pay attention to my work pace and things like that, and have a little bit more breathing room so that I can bring more of my full self to everything I'm doing, not be so rushed. Harder to do than it's said, but anything come to mind? Anybody want to share a word, a phrase? And it can also be, I really love it when I'm doing X and I want to make sure I'm still doing that next year.
Yeah, that's kind of where my brain went, was I thought of doing live workshops. I love doing workshops, and it was like, it's probably a knee-jerk reaction to the fact that we've all been cooped up. And I've said that next year, as soon as the doors open, I said, I think we may just go on a 6-month visit to people across the country that we know.
Yes.
But I thought about workshops, and that sort of that engagement, on topics that are important to me. And, for me, the thing about workshops is that when you get to see those aha moments, from people. And that's what went through my mind.
Yeah. So I'll just translate for a second. So Jim, if he was redoing his profile, one of the things he might be able to say is, I come alive when I'm in in-person workshops. And it is so satisfying when someone gets an aha moment. That kind of statement can really touch someone and really get a sense of who he is, that he really lives for and is in service of others and is feeded off their energy, and he feeds off their success. So that would be an example of how you can kind of integrate those keywords and those feelings that you might get when you do an exercise like this into, we want to present who we ultimately want to be in our profile as part of manifesting that journey, as part of bringing that about. No, we can't say things we're not doing, but you can say things in interested in, or I light up when, or as I, evolve in my career, I want more of ABC. Anybody else want to, we can end this exercise right here, or if anybody wants to just do a quick reflection, you can. I didn't want to put anybody on the spot, but you're welcome to say something if you wish.
Well, I mean, it's funny because I think Jim and I are on the same wavelength, because I had engagement at the top of my list. And I looked at it as two ways. One, that I need to engage more with colleagues. And then also when I was doing workshops, I was more engaged with the customers, and they felt more engaged with me. And one of the things that they said about me was that I engaged them because I asked a lot of questions. It meant I had to do less talking. But in any case, I asked them a lot of questions, and that was, that's something that's really missing, in the webinars, is that you can't ask questions and get responses, verbal responses. So.
Yeah. So
So we're
in
all
your profile, that's where some of those statements could actually be integrated into a profile about how I am able to listen to what the job seeker needs and ask good questions to pull out more information, or really help them
Yeah.
dig and find their way. It's like,
I mean,
wow, by the quality of my questions, I'm eliciting more of that person and what they need to do for their next step.
Absolutely.
Or whatever you're doing. Yeah. And then Hannah, were you going to say something?
Sorry, I was just going to say there's obviously a theme. Like, I think we're all wishing and wanting that human contact and that human interaction,
Yeah.
because I have speaking, right, doing more speaking in my online courses. And I was looking at the shorter term because I knew I'd have to do more online versus like going out in person. But my preference would be like Jim and Bob to be in front of the classroom with these folks, right?
Absolutely.
And the other point that I said was collaborating with other experts. Because that is, I love the thought process and the sharing of ideas with other experts, because I think that makes everybody wiser, and it's a much richer experience for people. So,
yeah.
So this is interesting. We're getting some good things about our own path in this exercise, and we're also just kind of demonstrating how, okay, stay in touch with what you really want. It's easy for us to just kind of forget about that LinkedIn profile, but that's a tool to help us bring in more of what we really want. So thank you so much for playing with me on my
Great
holistic
exercise.
side.
Yeah,
So
I loved it. Great exercise.
feel free to steal it. You may take it.
I might.
And listen, pausing, breathing brings us more into the moment, and then we have more to work with. All right. So I'm building in pauses into all my webinars now.
Good,
because I brought it into the CCC conference. We brought the power of the pause, strategic pause, we called it, in between each of our sessions, so that we could take a breath, come back to this moment, and then make capacity and room for whatever's next. So that's my thought for everybody that's on here that's a career coach. Consider that power of the strategic pause. All right, back to you, Jim. We've got more to talk about, and I know we're running a little bit over, but
but I just want to say that, for me, when I'm working with clients, it's about getting that unique statement right in there, not just saying I like to do workshops, right? It's like you're probably going to see this in my new LinkedIn profile soon. Is it's come alive doing the face-to-face, and love seeing those aha moments when people get it. That's a story. There's a story and a depth to that, where so many people just list stuff that they can do. I'm always working with clients to get that depth out, and it's hard to do on your own, and so I appreciate your feedback. I'm going to go to the next question though. So what are the 2 tips on how to engage others and sending your message out on LinkedIn? And we're going to start with Bob, and then Sabrina, and then Hannah. Bob?
Well, I want to first say that there's a difference between engaging with your connections or network and just being active. And I am going to admit to Hannah that I agree with her in terms of how much engaging you should do. Well, first of all, let me describe explain my description of engagement, and that is communicating through writing, of course, either by writing posts or commenting on what others write. To me, that is engaging. And what I was going to say is that I thought I had to engage every day of the week. And I think Hannah said maybe 4 times a week was sufficient, which I totally agree with, because it's not about the quantity, it's about the quality of engaging. And then I also have come to the realization that I can't engage all the time. I can there are times when I can simply react, like, insightful, love, caring, whatever it may be. So, in terms of engagement, that's how I would describe it. First of all, there's reacting, and then there's engaging. And I think the type of engaging you do has to be more quality than quantity. Long posts, they are really the rave now. A lot of people are doing long posts. I tend to like to write articles more. So I share my articles on LinkedIn, which doesn't get as much reaction as the long posts do, but that's okay, because that's how I like to engage. And I do like to, comment on what other people write. I think you need to do that. Otherwise you're going to come across as, self-centered.
So what do you mean by, what's a long post?
Oh, a long post is, well, you start a post, and you choose a topic of whichever it may be, and then you just I think you have 1,200 characters, and then you weave a story, I guess. You know what I mean?
Instead of going to a LinkedIn article or a blog on your website,
Right.
you're basically writing in the post, right? So it's I just wanted to try to make sure that we were clarified on that. So.
No. But let me also add that may not be the easiest thing for job seekers to do.
Yeah.
They may choose to instead read an article, share it, and then write a comment on it.
Yeah.
Which is perfectly fine. That's a great way to start. And you might never get to writing long posts or articles, but that's okay.
Not everybody needs to write a long post. That's for sure.
Exactly.
Sabrina, thoughts on sending this message and engaging others?
Can I steal screen share to give an example real quick?
Sure.
Well, you're full of surprises.
I know, but I'm having fun. I'm a visual learner. Okay.
Yeah.
And this one has to do with Jim, so I thought it would be fun.
What?
And he's like, what? He doesn't know about this.
What? Uh-oh.
Jim, I want to give an example of engagement and how it can help a job seeker. Okay, so here's an example. Jim posted, for people looking for remote work, Byron Clark at Sidekicks shares his favorite remote job boards. I then added a comment because I was like, this is such good timing. I'm so glad this is up here because, thank you, Jim and Byron. And you can see I've used the @ sign to tag them. I want others to know that Byron isn't my connection, but I'm still able to tag him. And that didn't used to be the case. This is the strategy that I want you to take home with you. That you can tag someone who's your second level connection and give them a shout out. And I literally took Byron Clark's list of remote work and I added it to my handout. Do you know what happened the next day? Byron Clark sent me a connection asking me to connect with him. And he's one of Hannah is also in that top voices, LinkedIn top voices from last year. So it's just like, wow, I'm just trying to be nice in that I want good resources for my clients. And I wanted to give Byron credit for that by tagging him. I didn't expect that to happen. So the message that I want people to have with this is think about who is it that you want to bring into your network. Can you actually share some of their content and then give them that shout out? One last tip, and you don't have to come back to me again, but the last one is the next time you do a webinar, a workshop, a conference, consider summarizing, say 3 tips you learned, and then tag the people who taught it to you. They, again, will show up in blue. They'll be notified that you've given them a shout out and you're saying, look at what I learned. And you're helping your fellow LinkedIn members by giving them the salient points. So it's educational and it grows your network and it gives credit to the person who delivered that information for you. That's it. Okay.
It's relationship building, right?
Beautiful.
It's all relationship.
My attitude with networking is how can I help? So what can I do, not just for me, but for others? And I think that is just one of the best things that we can do, and get the tool that we can give to our job seekers and our career coaches that are in this field with us. Yeah.
Great tip and great example.
Yeah.
That's an awesome example. And I love Bob's long post idea too, because those are like really great things. So I don't really have much to add, but but this is what I do have to add. I think for job seekers, the advice that is important to remember is this kind of engagement that we're talking about shouldn't be directed towards career coaches or job search coaches or people like us. the job seeker doesn't want to be commenting on a post ranting about interview etiquette. The job seeker should be focused on commenting on industry or company culture or things that are related to their desired career move, not to their job search. That's not going to help anybody. It's not going to help you as an individual, as a job seeker, build that reputation for yourself. And you're not playing in the right circles. You need to go play in the right sandbox. So if there are industry experts that are in your field, you can do what Sabrina just showed, you know, by tagging them and saying, I just read, you know, Sabrina's great post about blah, 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 blah. And I wanted to share it with my network because I think that it's really valuable and these trends are going to be important in the future. So I think that, you know, you play in the right sandbox and make sure job seekers that they're, you know, commenting, engaging with the people that they really should be engaging in. And this is a great tip. I love how you talked about tagging, and you can tag anyone, and which is a newer feature of LinkedIn. I think that if you're following all of the people that work for the companies that you're interested in, that's a great way to get on their radar by commenting on something that they've posted prior to your sending an invitation to connect, because people generally don't want to connect with a complete stranger. But if you've left a thoughtful, meaningful comment on something that they've posted, and then they respond, and then you invite them to connect, sort of like Byron did, right? That's where the magic really happens. There's already sort of the beginning of a relationship there, and they're far more likely to accept your invitation to connect.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's so good. I'm going to throw out one little other thing that builds on what Hannah's saying about play in your sandbox. I was working with a finance client of mine, and I said, why don't you go look for hashtag finance, nonprofit finance, and then start commenting on anywhere.
Yeah.
Build your reputation and add value to those posts that have nonprofit and finance, even if you don't know the person. They could be a third level, but you're building your reputation as being a thought leader, an adder, a contributor. And you know, after you go back and forth with someone, like Hannah said, then you can actually send them a LinkedIn request. Hey, it was really nice to chat with you about such and such and such and such. Perhaps you'd like to connect here on LinkedIn.
Absolutely.
So it's hard, you know, a lot of folks that don't feel confident enough to go in and add value, but even going in and liking, or even just making any kind of comment or sharing other experts' information is fine.
Right.
You don't have to, we don't all have to be writers, right? I mean, and a lot of job seekers, they're not really ready to, they don't want to do that, but they need to be strategic in looking at people, and they need to identify, these are the folks that are, this is the company that I'd love to work for, and this is the department within that company. How do I find those people? How do I find those discussions? That's so important. And in building that relationship, you know, before you get hired, right?
So I need to add, though, that job seekers should give themselves permission to engage. If they happen to like writing, then they should give themselves permission to write. They have a right to do it. I've run into job seekers who say, I don't really have a right to, you know, write, to comment, because I'm not working. Well, yeah, you do. You still have that expertise, you know, industry knowledge of your occupation and so forth. So share it, you know.
So what do you think? Another hour here? Can we still got more to talk about, I think.
Well,
but,
we might need it because I keep going in and out.
Yeah. It's all recorded, Bob, for posterity. So, listen, folks, thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim.
I don't want to end this conversation, but I do need to. I really do try to keep these to 25 to 30 minutes or so. So I'm going to wrap this up, and we're all going to get together again soon. I can tell you that right now. But I am Jim Peacock, the principal of Peak Careers Consulting. I started my business with the Facilitating Career Development class, and I've developed these online discussion-based seminars for career practitioners, which they're different. They're not independent studies. They're actually with 5 to 10 other career-type people, and we take a deeper dive into different career theories, transition theories, happenstance theory. Bob also teaches LinkedIn, a 5-week class on LinkedIn. I do love my workshops, as Sabrina pulled out of me. I'll have a handful of individual career coaching clients, and I am the author of a field guide for career practitioners. If you want to receive my weekly career email, you can sign up on the website peak-careers.com and also get the top 10 tips of working with an undecided person. And you can find me mostly on LinkedIn, but I also have Peak Careers you'll find on Facebook, Pinterest, Twitter, and Instagram. And I just want to thank you very much, folks, for joining me today. And I really appreciate you guys carving some time out this week. Thank you.
Great to be here.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank
Sabrina
you.
and Hannah. Thank you.
Good seeing you all.
Yes.